Welcome to Rock Solid Productions, where in this video we are going to show you how to modify a Japanese GameCube that you can play either the Japanese games on it or American games. Hey everyone, Gary here with Rock Solid Productions, and if you saw our post-Christmas 2017 episode, we showed you that I actually got this really cool Spice Orange Japanese GameCube as a Christmas present, and I've just been chomping at the bit to be able to play. The problem is you can only play Japanese GameCube games on this. It's region locked, so the only thing I've had to play to this point has been the Gameboy player, or I also have a Japanese copy of Luigi's Mansion. Well, I don't read Japanese, so it's been kind of hard to play. And I've got a standard American one down here that's been loaned to me from Live Action Games in Champaign, Illinois. But there's a way that you can modify the Japanese GameCube so that you can play American games. So if you want a unique GameCube such as this, you can do it. I will tell you right now, it is not for the faint of heart. There were a couple mistakes I made along the way, and there are a few things that you need to be aware of. I'm kind of okay with how this one turned out, but there's some things along the lines, and I'll show you in the tutorial here exactly kind of where some of my pitfalls were that you can learn from. So let's get to the deconstruction. As with any good surgery, we're going to need some decent tools to work with. So I have a side cutters for cutting wire. These are pretty cool. These are tweezers that I use, and what's nice is they basically squeeze closed on an item. So what I can do is I can grab my wire, hold it, and I'm not trying to squeeze the tweezer itself to keep things closed. What's nice too, these also act as a heat sink to make sure I'm not applying too much heat to the board and damaging it. This is just a small parts tray. It's from an RC company called RPM. I'll have a link down in the description to it. What's nice on this, it has a little magnet to help keep everything organized. I've used RPM parts trays for years. I do have a small dental pick in case I need to clean anything out or help, again, keep the wire down on the board as I'm soldering. You will need a Phillips head screwdriver, or I'm actually going to use my Hitachi power screwdriver that I utilize. You'll probably need a flat blade screwdriver, a bristle brush to clean out any dust and gunk that you have, a game bit screwdriver to help take everything apart, and then the final thing that you're going to need above and beyond the soldering iron and your wire is you want to have some electronic dusting spray just so you can clean everything as you go along. Well, you've got it apart, you might as well get rid of the dust rabbits and whatnot that may be living inside of your GameCube. So with this, we're going to set our tools aside, except for the three that we're going to really need here first, and that's a flat blade screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, and the game bit. So first things first, obviously remove any peripherals from your GameCube. That includes adapters, the Game Boy player, and now that we have the underside exposed, what we need to do, there are 4 screws here and there, 2 each, that we'll take out, and this is what you need the game bit for. There we go. And now pull off the lid. Well, I forgot. Make sure you take out any games as well, especially something like this. This is the Game Boy player driver disc that if you don't have this, you're kind of SOL. So looking inside at the vents and everything, I've got a little bit of dust here, a little bit there. Again, just going to take the bristle brush and just kind of brush that off. Same on that side. Now this will set aside for now. There is one thing to be aware of before you put this back on, is you do want the lid open, because on the underside there's this tab here that can cause issues when you're trying to get everything lined back up. So you want to make sure that you have the lid open when we go to put back on a little bit later. Looking at the GameCube itself, I've got some dust and crud here, some built up along the side here. The fan obviously has quite a bit of dust on it. Now what we need to do is there are Phillips head screws. I believe there's 4 on each side. Actually there's 5, it looks like. We need to take those off so we can get underneath, but we also need to do things like take off the fan, unplug, I believe that's the power supply. So we're going to take all this out right now. The back plate just lifts up and out. Now one thing to be careful of too, before we get too far, Yes, we do need to pop this guy out. Be careful that you don't break it. Pops forward. There is a ribbon cable that attaches down here. Now, the dental pick that I showed you earlier is also something you can use to help pop that out if need be. Quite honestly, I'm going to just leave this dangling because I'm not going to tear it down that far. Now, one thing, like I mentioned, I'm actually going to use my Hitachi power screwdriver. I've used this for years with all of my RC equipment, and one of the reasons why I use this is the fact it actually has a clutch on it to make sure that when I'm tightening things back down, I'm not overdriving it and stripping out plastic pieces. All right. Another thing too, where the tweezers comes in handy, is I can actually use that to grab screws while I'm in here too. Now this one I may not be able to get around. I can't, so I have to do this one the old-fashioned way. This whole part pops off then, and we will have to unplug this. Be careful when you route that wire out. Now we're just going to take this, we'll blow it out real quick as well. 3 more screws on this side here. And there you can see the clutch itself. It was tightened so much out of the factory that the clutch was not strong enough to unscrew it. So again, the main thing you want to do is you want to protect your plastics as you're doing this. You don't want to risk stripping and damaging your parts. And I've got the clutch set at 6, it looks like. Again, these are all parts that are older and discontinued. Don't go cranking on them because they're going to be hard and expensive to replace if you need to. All right, we're going to just blow some of this crud out here. You can see there was a bunch of crap hanging out there. Same thing on that side. Holy cow. Now this should lift right off, I believe. Unless, nope, you got to get these on the back too. This one I'm not going to try to get around there. I'll just use a regular screwdriver to get around that. And then finally it looks like we've got to remove these 4 screws here too. That may be a little bit on the big side, and it is. So we'll need to change our bit here to a smaller tip. Actually, we'll grab my handy dandy dynamite screwdriver here. Get these unscrewed. And this is especially when using the tweezer comes in handy. And as you can see now, these clips come loose. You want to set those aside. You'll need to reinstall those later on. And now this whole optical drive comes right out. Pretty cool. You've got some dust and everything right under there. We're going to clean that off here in a second too. All right, so far, so good. Let's see here. Is there an easy way that I can get this bad boy out? Oh, just pops right out. Good. Just get that out of the way. All right. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws that hold on this heatsink. I don't think I'll be able to get in there with that. No, I cannot. So I'll have to use it, or use the old-fashioned method. I think that one's too big. So again, back to the dynamite one. And this is the part where you can really damage things before actually soldering, that is. So this is the heatsink for the CPU and the GPU. And what you're going to need to do is remove this from the board without damaging the components underneath. Now they use a heatsink compound to transfer heat from that CPU and GPU to the heatsink itself. Depending on the age, the type, there's a lot of things going on there. You can literally pull the CPU and GPU off of the traces on the board. So do yourself a favor, be very careful here. I'm going to flip it over just so I can, first of all, again, blow the dust off. Dump our screws out. All 6 screws are now out. So you're going to actually have to use a bit of force, and be careful as you're doing this because you've got capacitors here. Probably the best bet is to pull it this way. You don't have as many components on this side of it that you could possibly damage. Man, this makes me nervous. Oh, came right off. And there's the heatsink compound right there. And the beautiful thing, nothing is on the CPU or the GPU here. So I can blow this off and not have to worry about dust and dirt getting on here and causing any issues. Now, I'm hoping it shows up. But if you can see here on the ATI processor, it's called Flipper. That is reference to the fact that they called this Project Dolphin when it was in development mode. Now, there's a particular part of the board that we're looking for. Still dusty. Almost as dusty as the American Dream. It's right here. There's two traces, and you're not going to be able to see this, but one is labeled R6, and there's one that's labeled R5. So basically what we're having to do is I could bridge this here, and it would just be in NTSC-US the entire time. I want to be able to toggle back and forth. So this is where our switch comes in, but that's what I'm going to have to solder to. That's a very fine point to solder to. You know the old saying, it's all fun and games until someone gets hurt? Well, this is where you can possibly hurt someone or something. This is where I really wish John Riggs was here, because he is one hell of a soldering expert. And I'm no slouch, but I'd rather have someone else doing this than me. But so I have my soldering iron here. It is turned on. It is hot. I have my temp set to about 750 degrees. The trick with soldering, or one of the tricks with soldering, first of all, you need to have a very clean tip as you're soldering. Second of all, is you need to tin the iron before you apply any heat to anything. So I have 6040 rosin core solder that I'm using here. This is actually a little bit thick gauge for this, but honestly, it's what I use for my normal everyday stuff. And I've already stripped the ends of the wires here. Now I'm going to tin them. And the way that you tin them is you actually heat the wire while feeding the solder onto it. You don't heat the solder and then blop it on the wire. So first things first, I actually have to tin the iron. There you can see. Well, you may not be able to see, but that side is tinned. And all tinning means is basically you're basically pre-applying solder to the surface that you're going to be joining. Blobbed up a little bit there. So that wire is now tinned. We're going to set this one aside. Some people at this point, they may use tweezers or a needle nose pliers to hold the wire. I like actually holding the wire myself, because if it's too hot for me to hold, that means I'm applying too much heat to the wire. I need to get the heat off of there. Tin the tip. Now, this is a chisel tip for a soldering iron. For this, I really should be using a pencil tip. I just don't happen to have one. And I realized my hand was blocking everything there, so get you a better view here. So apply the heat to the end of the wire. And it doesn't take much. There you can actually see the wire is soldered to the solder. I was able just to break it free there. If you get a buildup of solder on your tip, clean it off. Some people like using flux. I don't. I think it tends to create just kind of a muddy mess. All right. Our pins that we're going to solder to, that point there, and this one right across. And this is one of those, again, just a very quick movement of the soldering iron. Whew. Okay, I'm honestly nervous about this, but we're just going to do it. Keep an eye. Now, I just noticed I almost hit that capacitor. Keep an eye that you're not applying heat to other things. And just like that, that wire is attached. I don't know if you saw it, but I just really, a quick touch is all you need. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. Actually, what I'm going to do here, I don't like the fact that there's a lot of wire showing here. I'm going to actually snip that just to make sure that it doesn't short out against anything inside or touch anything and conduct electricity. Same thing, giving it a tug here, and we're good. I'm not going to lie, that was, for me, the most nerve-wracking part of this whole thing. So I'm going to route my wires around here. And actually, I'm not turning off the iron yet, because we'll need it in a moment to wire the switch. Can I lift this up? Yeah, not really. But I can fish the wires underneath. All right, so the wires are here. I know some people have used like hot glue and whatnot to hold the wires down on the board. Don't do that. Hot glue does not belong on electronics, ever. Before I actually start installing the switch itself, we actually have to start putting the system back together. That includes getting the heatsink back on the motherboard. And one of the things for that I do is I'll use a couple screwdrivers just to make sure that the screw holes are lined back up before dropping it down. And we'll start reattaching the heatsink. The nice thing is the paste doesn't seem like it's overly sticky, so as you could see, the heatsink was moving around a little bit there while I was getting everything lined up. I would probably recommend, and actually what I am going to do here is I'm going to do like a star pattern, so I'm going to tighten down that one, that one, that one, that one, and then the two in the center, just like you should do when you are changing the tires on your car. I'm not going to lie, that was pretty nerve-wracking, folks. I was worried that I could potentially ruin my GameCube, and that potential technically still exists. This port here needs to align with that port right there. Pull the wires forward just a little bit so that drops more in that gap. All right, now we can put the fan back on this side. You can see how much cleaner that fan is now than what it was when I pulled it out. And there's a little tab right here that keys into a tab hole right here. All right, so what you do is you slide it in and then press it down. And we can plug in our plugs here in a second. The one thing to remember too on this, don't force anything. If it's not going in, there's a reason why. All right, so now I'm not going to tighten anything down yet. What I'm going to do is I have my leads coming out of the back, and I'm going to grab the back part of the case because now I need to make accommodations for where my switch is going to go. And I'll just leave the wires loose and kind of pulled up over here for right now. All right, so everything's aligned. Where I'm going to try to go is back into here, and I have two switches to choose from. Okay, and these are the two switches that I have. I have a flat and or a square and a round. And the reason why I went with these is they actually have a round connection style, or it's round where it gets held in, and then it uses a nut to retain it. And I wanted something that I could put in here. I don't like the big paddle switches that a lot of other modders have used. I wanted something a little bit more low profile. So the main thing is, can I go... I don't have a whole lot of room here to work with. You know what? Can I go here? No, not really. Well, I could go here with it. See, if I go there, it'll come through on that side. The only thing is I lose some of the copy there, which I'm not keen on. Can I go here? There's enough room there too. I don't think there's enough room here. See, if I go there, I should be clear. All right, so for this, what I'm going to do is I have a very special tool that I use, and one of the reasons why I wanted to use these type of switches is so that I could use one of these. This is just a tapered reamer, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a hole in here, and I'm going to ream this out until it is the size that these need. Yeah, that's where we're going to go. We're going to go up top here. The nice thing about using a reamer is, as you can see, it's making a perfectly round hole for me. Now my reamer was a little bit small for that hole that this needed, so I broke out my Dremel to open that up a little bit more. And as you see, the switch mounts are right in there. So during the final assembly here, one of the things that popped up was the round switch did not give me enough clearance here really to utilize. And also when I tried to put the lid on, the back of the handle here, that part right there was hitting the top of the switch and not allowing it to go all the way down. So I've actually swapped out the round switch with the square switch that I showed you earlier, and I've also modified it to flatten out the sides so I can fit up against that without an issue. And I've also removed material from the top here so that I can also have it come down and not obstruct the handle. So we'll have to tin this really quick and solder it up. Actually, now what I'm going to do is pop that in already. Snap it in. I'm actually going to use it to hold the switch in place here. There. There. Hit it again. Now what I'll end up doing is I'll use a little bit of shoe goo to mount the switch in here more permanently, but just for our testing right now, we're just going to make sure that everything bolts back together. So flip our GameCube over. And now, the moment of truth. All right, I'm more than a little nervous now that we have this button back up. I picked up an orange Wavebird, well, Wavebird knockoff. It's a 2.4 gigahertz controller off of eBay too. So we have our orange controller, orange GameCube, orange Game Boy player. So fingers crossed. I actually know what happens. And I'm actually running through the regular AV cables. I still have the US GameCube attached to the GCHD adapter. All right, so I'm still in Japanese here. I'm gonna power off, flip the switch, power back on. It's in English, ladies and gentlemen. And just to prove actually what I'm gonna do, I will take, I was playing some Rogue Leader earlier today on the purple GameCube. Pop this out, pop it in here, and remember, in a traditional Japanese GameCube, it won't read this game at all. Helps if you turn on the controller. There you go, it's playing, it works. Now this is not something that I would recommend for the beginner to the intermediate modder. This is more the advanced modder. You need to have very good soldering skills to be able to pull this off. Otherwise, you could very easily ruin your GameCube, and especially if you've got like one of the Spice Orange ones like I have here, you don't want that to happen. It's something that's very special. It's really cool though that allows you to really expand your library with both Japanese and US GameCube games, something I'm really looking forward to doing now. Obviously Rogue Leader, one of my favorites. Love this game. We'll be doing some live streaming with this possibly tonight before you even actually see this. So in the end, the mod cost me a couple bucks for a Switch really, and that's all that it took. So let me know if you do have any questions about this modification. Please feel free to leave any comments down below. You can also email me at rocksolidmail@gmail.com. Hit me up on Twitter too, @RockSolidStudios, or on Facebook, facebook.com/RockSolidProductions. Don't forget to go ahead, hit that subscribe button. That way, anytime we do come out with new content, you are basically kept in the know and know what we have going on here. So I am super geeked and excited that this has worked. I've played my orange GameCube a little bit, but it's just been Luigi's Mansion. It's the only game that I had that was for the Japanese GameCube. Now I can go ahead, take advantage of the the GCHD. If you haven't checked out our review of this, check it out. It's right up there. I can get HDMI output out of the Japanese GameCube and play US games. I am super excited about this. Now, one final thing, this modification will only work for US and Japanese based consoles. PAL systems, different boards, you can't do this basically with a PAL system. So I want to thank you for watching. I've got some GameCube to play. I'll see you soon.